If you've opened this video, some part of you already knows. The version of you that's been running the show is ready to end. Not in a physical way, but as an old energetic pattern. That knowing isn't coming from your thinking mind. It's your deeper field pulling you toward a higher path. Right now, as you watch, there's an unseen field around you, a pattern of habits, memories, and self-images, holding you in the same loops you've lived for years. Most people don't realize this isn't just in your head. At the tiniest level of reality, it's coded into the fabric of your experience. Have you noticed how the harder you try to change, the more you seem to stay the same? Ever wondered why some people seem to transform overnight, while others wrestle with the same problems for decades? Same relationships, same money issues, same emotional cycles. The key lies in what physicists call the observer effect, and what mystics have always called the death of the false self. There's a moment, a real, measurable moment, when consciousness shifts dimensions. The old identity, with all its limits and programs, begins to dissolve at the quantum level. And as it dissolves, something extraordinary happens. The universe starts to reorganize itself around the new you that's emerging. Most people miss this shift because they're trying to add new habits onto the old self. They're trying to upgrade the old identity instead of letting it go. It's like trying to tune a radio to a new station while keeping the old frequency playing at the same time. Ancient wisdom said it simply: you can't pour new wine into old skins. Modern neuroscience now backs it up. Research from Dr. Joe Dispenza and the HeartMath Institute shows that when you truly release the old identity, your brain rewires itself in real time. The neural pathways that held you in old patterns dissolve, and new networks form to match your highest potential. But here's what self-help books rarely tell you. This quantum shift isn't gradual. It doesn't come from willpower or forced positivity. It happens in an instant of surrender, what physicists call quantum decoherence, when the old version of you stops existing as a probability in the field. Are you one of the few ready to experience this? Because what you're about to hear will challenge everything you think you know about change, identity, and reality itself. You're about to see why letting go isn't just spiritual advice. It's a quantum necessity for moving into higher dimensions of existence. So the real question is, are you ready to stop fixing the old you and start allowing the real you to emerge from the infinite field of possibility? Every morning when you open your eyes, you're not just waking up. You're collapsing infinite possibilities into one lived reality. At a subconscious level, you're choosing which version of yourself exists in this moment. Here's the hidden part. Every time you choose the same emotions, the same reactions, the same limited beliefs you had yesterday, you're not just keeping things as they are. You're actively locking yourself deeper into that timeline. In the quantum field, all possibilities exist at once. The version of you who's confident, abundant, and living on purpose already exists. So does the version of you who's stuck and afraid. Your consciousness, your observation, is what calls one possibility forward and lets the others fade. This is where ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science meet. The Vedic texts call it Maya, the illusion of the separate self. Buddhism speaks of anatta, the absence of a fixed identity. What those traditions intuited thousands of years ago, quantum physics is now confirming. The person you think you are isn't a solid thing. It's a set of repeated thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, a collection of neural superhighways you've built over time. Those grooves in your brain, the ones that make certain reactions automatic and effortless, they're not actually you. They're patterns so practiced, they only feel permanent. But here's the truth that flips everything upside down. These neural superhighways only exist because you keep driving down them. They get their energy from your attention, your emotions, your identity. And the very instant, you stop identifying with them, something extraordinary happens at the quantum level. The wave function that held that version of you in place starts to break apart. The old self doesn't disappear as a loss. It dissolves as a liberation. That's why every true spiritual path talks about death and rebirth. Why every hero's journey demands a plunge into the unknown. This isn't just a metaphor. It's quantum mechanics in action. The old self has to die for the new self to rise. But here's what they're missing. The you you're releasing is actually the smallest, most limited version of who you are. You're not losing your power. You're shedding the illusions that have been blocking it. You're not giving up your identity. You're peeling away the mask that's been hiding your real self all along. And this is just the beginning. What I'm about to share next will show you how this quantum process really works, why it feels so intense, and most importantly, how to move through it with ease and trust. Because once you understand how consciousness actually transforms, you'll see that letting go isn't something you do, it's something you allow. Take a moment right now. Notice the energy moving through your body as you take these words in. There's a subtle shift happening, isn't there? Something that wasn't there when you first started this video. That's not your imagination. That's your quantum field beginning to recalibrate. What you're feeling now is what physicists call entanglement with higher possibilities. This isn't just information going into your conscious mind. It's activating dormant codes in your DNA, waking up cellular memories of who you are beyond the limits you've been living under. Feel that slight opening in your chest, that gentle softening of something you've held tight for so long. That's the first sign of decoherence, the old self loosening its grip. The old patterns are loosening their hold on your energy field. Your nervous system is beginning to resonate with a higher frequency version of you, a self that exists beyond the limits of who you've believed yourself to be. This is sacred ground you're standing on. This moment of recognition, this subtle stirring of possibility, this quiet opening to something greater. Ancient wisdom calls this a threshold. Modern neuroscience calls it neuroplasticity in action. But at its heart, it's your soul remembering what it really is. Don't try to analyze it with your mind. Let your whole being take it in. Let your cells receive it. Let your field integrate it. Because what's happening right now is preparing you for what comes next. The deeper revelations that will show you how to move with this energy of transformation instead of pushing against it. Quantum physicist and consciousness researcher Dr. Amit Goswami has spent decades exploring what he calls quantum consciousness. His work at the University of Oregon revealed something extraordinary. When we truly release our identification with old patterns, our brain waves sync with what he calls the quantum self, a higher dimensional aspect of consciousness that exists beyond space and time. And this isn't just new science breaking fresh ground. Over 1,000 years ago, the Tibetan Book of the Dead described in stunning detail the stages of consciousness between death and rebirth, what they call the bardo. Their descriptions of ego dissolution and identity transformation mirror exactly what modern neuroscientists are now seeing in brain scans during deep meditative states. Dr. Eben Alexander, a Harvard neurosurgeon who survived a near-death experience, describes entering what he calls the core, a realm of pure awareness where individual identity dissolves into something vast. His scientific mind couldn't make sense of what his consciousness had encountered, a state where letting go of the self opened into an infinite expansion. Centuries earlier, the Sufi mystic Rumi wrote, "You were born with wings. Why prefer to crawl through life?" What he knew, and what research into quantum consciousness is now confirming, is that our small, limited identity isn't who we are. It's who we've been taught to believe we are. In the Hindu tradition, there's the concept of moksha, liberation from the cycle of suffering. And moksha doesn't come from gaining something new. It comes from releasing the illusion of separateness, the false belief that we're isolated and limited beings. Modern physicists like Carlo Rovelli and Shahriar Afshar are finding that at the quantum level, separateness really is an illusion. Everything is interconnected. Everything arises from one unified field of consciousness, expressing itself in infinite forms. The Zen master Dogen taught that enlightenment means dropping off body and mind, not destroying them, simply releasing the idea that they define the whole of who you are. Recent studies in consciousness research show that during deep states of letting go, activity in the brain's default mode network, the area tied to self-referential thinking, drops dramatically, while areas linked to feelings of unity become highly active. And here's what both ancient traditions and modern science are revealing. The process of letting go isn't random. It follows patterns. It has recognizable stages. It can be understood and navigated with wisdom. 3 years ago, I learned this for myself. I was sitting in my car at 2 a.m, outside a 24-hour diner, tears streaming down my face from somewhere so deep it felt ancient. I had just walked away from everything that defined me: my career, my relationship, my sense of identity, everything that made me feel safe, successful, and acceptable. For months, I'd felt a strange pull, a knowing that the life I was living wasn't aligned with who I was becoming. But every time I imagined making a change, my mind flooded with fear. What will people think? How will you survive? You're throwing everything away. That night in the parking lot, I saw something clearly. Those weren't my fears. They were the fears of an old version of me. The version that needed approval to feel worthy, that believed security came from controlling outcomes, that mistook identity for a job, a relationship, a list of possessions. And in that moment of complete breakdown, something extraordinary happened. I stopped trying to figure it out. I stopped managing, planning, holding myself together. I let go completely. I surrendered to the unknown with every cell in my body. What followed defied everything I thought I knew about life. Within weeks, opportunities appeared I could never have planned. People entered my life who matched my authentic path. Resources showed up in ways that felt almost magical. But the deepest change wasn't external, it was inside. Where I once felt anxious, I felt alive. Where I once felt limited, I felt limitless. Where I once felt separate, I felt woven into something vast and loving. That's when I finally understood what the mystics mean by death and rebirth. That's when surrender stopped being an idea and became a doorway. And that's when I saw what quantum physicists mean when they say, observation changes reality. The old me didn't slowly improve into a new me. The old me dissolved, The new me emerged from a completely different level of consciousness. This isn't just my story. It's the story of every soul that's ever gone through true transformation. And if you're watching this, it's calling to become your story too. What I discovered in that parking lot, what the quantum field revealed in that moment of total surrender, is what I've dedicated my life to sharing. This path isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've always been beneath the layers of conditioning and fear. And that remembering always begins with letting go. If something in my story has awakened a recognition inside you, if you've felt that stirring of possibility in your own field, then you're ready to go deeper into these mysteries. Subscribe now, because this is where we explore the deepest quantum reflections of consciousness itself. This is where we dive into the hidden mechanics of reality that most people never discover. This is where seekers become finders, where possibilities become realities, where the quantum field reveals your true nature. So how do you know when this quantum shift is beginning in your life? The universe has its own language. It speaks through signs, synchronicities, and subtle shifts in the fabric of reality. Most people miss them because they're expecting fireworks. But the first sign is what I call divine dissatisfaction. You start to feel restless with things that used to satisfy you. Your job might still be fine, but it no longer lights you up. Your relationships might still be comfortable, but they no longer inspire your growth. Your routines feel empty even though nothing on the surface has changed. This isn't depression. It's your soul outgrowing its current container. You might start questioning things you never questioned before. Why do I do this job? Why do I live here? Why do I spend time with these people? These aren't acts of rebellion. They're your consciousness preparing for expansion. Another sign is what quantum physicists call reality glitches. Numbers and sequences show up repeatedly. 1111, 333, 555. You think of someone and they call or text you. Dreams feel more vivid than waking life. These aren't coincidences. They're signals that your consciousness is starting to operate at a higher frequency. Pay attention to your body. The old you might have ignored these cues, pushed through discomfort, rationalized staying where you were. But as you attune to higher frequencies, your body becomes a precise guidance system. Expansion feels light, energizing, spacious. Contraction feels heavy, draining, restrictive. You might also notice that old patterns intensify before they dissolve. This is what consciousness researcher David Hawkins called the final purgation. Your habitual thoughts and reactions may grow louder, sharper, more uncomfortable. That's not regression. It's a sign those patterns are losing their unconscious hold and surfacing so they can be released. Another profound sign is the arrival of what I call quantum mentors. People show up who mirror your highest potential. Books fall into your hands at the perfect time. Conversations feel divinely orchestrated. Opportunities appear that match your deepest values and authentic gifts. The universe literally begins to reorganize itself around your emerging truth. But the surest sign you're in the deepest part of the quantum shift is what mystics call the dark night of the soul. Everything that used to give your life meaning feels hollow. Everything you relied on for security feels unstable. Everything you used for identity feels foreign. This isn't a breakdown. It's a breakthrough. It's your consciousness expanding beyond the boundaries of the old self. The caterpillar dissolving in the cocoon before it becomes a butterfly. The most sacred and necessary part of transformation. And here's what most people don't realize. There's a point in the letting go process where almost everyone turns back, a threshold which, once crossed, makes the transformation irreversible. A choice that determines whether you complete the shift or stay stuck between two worlds. Ancient alchemists called this stage the nigredo, the blackening, where everything dissolves before it can be reborn. Modern neuroscience calls it the neural gap, the space between the death of old neural pathways and the birth of new ones. Quantum physicists call it the collapse point, where one reality ends and another begins. But this moment doesn't happen just once. It happens again and again, at deeper levels, each time asking for more faith, more trust, more willingness to step into the unknown. And here's the key. There's a hidden principle, woven into every mystical tradition, encoded in the most advanced quantum theories, reflected in every transformation story of those who've crossed from the old self into the authentic self. This principle determines not only if you make the shift, but how quickly and how gracefully you move through it, and how completely you embody the new version of yourself that's waiting to emerge. What is this principle? The hidden key that separates those who fully transform from those who get stuck halfway. What opens the door to your highest timeline? I'll share it with you in a moment. But first, you need to see what actually happens inside your brain, your body, and your energy field when you truly let go. Because once you understand the mechanics of it, you'll never fear the process again. When you stop clinging to the old self, when you stop defending, protecting, and polishing a version of you that isn't even real, your entire nervous system shifts. Neuroscientists call it coherent reorganization. Every system in your body begins working in greater balance and efficiency. The stress response, the constant low-grade fight or flight that comes from ego control and fear, finally starts to dissolve. Your cortisol levels come back into balance. Your heart rate variability improves. Your immune system strengthens. And beyond the biology, something even deeper happens. You feel a peace that isn't tied to circumstances. The kind of peace that stays with you even when life isn't perfect. I experienced this after that night in the parking lot. The months that followed weren't free of challenges, but for the first time, I wasn't at war with reality. I wasn't wasting energy forcing outcomes or clinging to an identity that never fit me. Your mind also transforms. When you're not burning mental fuel, defending the ego, or repressing your truth, clarity opens up. Creativity flows. Problems that once felt impossible suddenly reveal simple solutions. Decision-making becomes effortless because you're acting from alignment rather than fear. Dr. Bruce Lipton's work in epigenetics proves this isn't just a feeling. When you shift your beliefs about who you are, you literally change how your genes express themselves. Genes tied to stress, aging, and disease go quiet. Genes linked to vitality, repair, and health light up. You're not just rewriting your psychology, you're reshaping your biology. But the most profound shift can't be measured in a lab. Spiritual traditions call it self-realization. It's the direct experience of your essence beyond all conditioning, beyond every label, beyond every story about who you're supposed to be. It isn't something you grasp with the intellect. It's something you live. Every moment feels fresh, alive, open with possibility. You stop reacting from old wounds or anxieties about the future. You meet life from presence, from truth, from love. And when you live that way, even your relationships transform, because you're no longer looking to others to complete you. You're no longer chasing validation, security, or identity from the outside. You love from fullness, not from emptiness. You give from overflow, not from scarcity. And just like in my own journey, life begins to mirror that back to you. Opportunities show up that match your deepest values and authentic gifts. Money flows more easily because you're no longer blocking abundance with beliefs about unworthiness. Health improves because you're no longer creating stress and illness through inner conflict. Creativity explodes because you're finally free to express yourself without self-censorship. But maybe the most important shift of all is something I call quantum trust, an unshakable faith in the intelligence of life itself. You begin to know, not just hope, that everything is unfolding for your highest good. You feel the universe conspiring to help you grow into your full potential. You realize letting go isn't about losing anything. It's about gaining everything. Pause for a moment. Really pause. What if everything you've been taught about change, growth, and becoming your best self has been backwards? What if the path to your highest potential isn't about adding more, doing more, becoming more, but about releasing, surrendering, and letting go of everything that isn't authentically you? What if the resistance you felt, the frustration with not being able to create lasting change, has been happening because you've been trying to transform while still clinging to the very identity that needs to dissolve? Look at your own life. How much energy are you spending trying to manage, control, and improve your circumstances while staying the same person inside? How much effort goes into changing your outer world while keeping your inner world untouched? What would happen if you stopped? What would happen if you just let go? Not of your responsibilities or your care for others or your authentic dreams, but of the need to be who you think you're supposed to be. What if the person you're trying so hard to become is actually a smaller, more limited version of who you already are? What if, beneath all the conditioning, fear, and stories of lack, there's a version of you that's already whole, already perfect, already connected to infinite intelligence and love? This isn't just philosophy. This is the direct experience mystics have spoken about for centuries. This is the reality quantum physics is beginning to point toward. This is the transformation that happens when you stop improving the false self and start allowing the true self to emerge. Think about the caterpillar. It doesn't try to become a better caterpillar. It doesn't go to caterpillar therapy, read self-help books, or set caterpillar goals. It surrenders so completely to the process that it dissolves, and in that surrender, something entirely new emerges. Something that was always its potential, but could never manifest while it insisted on staying a caterpillar. What if your struggles, your dissatisfaction, your longing for more aren't signs that something's wrong with you? What if they're proof that something's so right with you that your soul refuses to settle for less than your full potential? What if this moment, right now, is the beginning of your own quantum shift? What if simply reading these words, feeling these possibilities, sensing this truth, is your consciousness preparing for the most beautiful transformation of your life? The only real question is, are you ready to trust the process? Are you ready to let go of who you think you are and discover who you've always been? Because everything you've heard so far has only been the foundation, the preparation for something much deeper, much more profound, much more transformative than most people ever imagine possible. There are levels to this quantum shift that go beyond personal transformation. There are dimensions of consciousness that open up when you complete this process of letting go. Dimensions that connect you to insights, abilities, and experiences most people believe are impossible. This is what the ancients called siddhis, the natural abilities that arise when consciousness is no longer limited by the separate self. This is what modern physics is beginning to reveal about the role of consciousness in shaping reality at the quantum level. In the videos ahead, I'm going to take you into that territory, the place where the quantum shift is complete, where you've embodied your authentic self, where you're living from what mystics call unity consciousness. You'll discover that consciousness doesn't just observe reality, it creates it. You'll learn the quantum field practices that allow you to manifest from a completely different level of being. You'll see why synchronicities multiply, why intuitive abilities amplify, and why your very presence begins to elevate the people around you. And you need to understand this. These aren't special powers reserved for a few. They're natural capacities that emerge when you're no longer using your energy to maintain a false identity. They're your birthright, available to anyone who makes the journey from ego self to authentic self. So the question is, how far are you willing to go? How deep are you willing to dive? How completely are you willing to let go of everything you think you know about who you are and what's possible? Because what comes next will challenge every assumption you've had about reality, consciousness, and your role as a creator in this quantum universe. And as we close today's message, I want to leave you with a whisper from the quantum field. Something your soul already knows, but your mind hasn't quite caught up to yet. The version of you who clicked on this video isn't the same one who's hearing these words now. Something subtle but real has shifted. Something inside you has woken up. Something has been activated at a cellular, energetic, quantum level. You might not feel dramatically different. It may be so quiet your mind can barely register it. But your deeper field knows. Your higher self knows. The universe knows. And that's the mystery I want to leave you with. The fact that you found this video, stayed through to this point, and felt these words land inside you, none of that is random. Your own quantum field has been guiding you here, weaving threads you couldn't see, arranging this moment of recognition, this point where you're being invited to choose between the old self and the true self. So here's the question that will echo in you long after this ends. What if the quantum shift isn't something coming someday? What if it's already happening through you right now? What if every moment of dissatisfaction, every flicker of possibility, every recognition of truth has been preparing you for a transformation already underway? What if letting go isn't something you do, but something you are? What if the old you was never actually real? Just a dream, and who you really are is the dreamer awakening? The answers aren't in more thinking or analyzing. They live in the space of pure awareness that opens when you stop trying to know and allow yourself to not know. They're found in the silence between thoughts, in the peace that comes before understanding, in the love that exists before experience. That's where the real journey begins. If you've stayed with me until now, and if you've let these words touch you beyond the mind, you already feel that something irreversible has been set in motion. This quantum shift is no longer an idea. It's a living reality beginning to unfold in your life. The you who woke up this morning was operating at one level of consciousness. The you receiving these words right now has access to possibilities that didn't exist in your awareness a few minutes ago. That isn't a metaphor, it's physics. But remember, this is just the beginning. What's happened during our time together is like planting a seed. What allows that seed to grow into the full flowering of your authentic self is what you do in the hours and days ahead. The quantum field is calling you deeper. Your highest timeline is beckoning you forward. The version of you beyond all limitations is ready to step fully into this reality. That's why I've created a whole series of videos, each one guiding you through a stage of this transformation. Every episode builds on the last, taking you deeper into the mystery, higher into the possibilities, closer to the truth of who you really are. The next video reveals specific techniques that let you navigate the quantum shift with grace instead of struggle. You'll discover ancient practices that neuroscience now shows can literally rewire your brain in real time. You'll see how letting go stops being a scary leap into the unknown and becomes a joyful dance with infinite possibility. Right now, on your screen, you're seeing videos that represent different aspects of your quantum transformation. Each contains a key that unlocks another dimension of your awakening. Each one reveals a piece of the puzzle of becoming fully yourself. Choose the one that calls to you most strongly. Trust that pull. It's not random. It's your quantum field guiding you to the next perfect step in your evolution. And as you click that video and continue this journey of discovering your true nature, remember this: you're not just watching videos about transformation. You're participating in the evolution of consciousness itself. You're part of a quantum field of beings awakening to their true nature, and in doing so, helping to awaken the entire planet. Welcome to the quantum reflex. Welcome to the reflection of your highest self. Welcome to the beginning of the most beautiful journey of your life. The next level of your awakening is just one click away.